at Philippi, and this letter is from Paul and Timothy. And then in verses 3 through 11, Paul really offers a prayer of thanksgiving to God for them. I wanted to read verses 3 through 11. I thank my God in all my remembrances of you, always in every prayer of mine, for you all making my prayer with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. It is right for me to feel this way about you all, because I hold you in my heart, for you are all partakers with me of grace, both in my imprisonment and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel. For God is my witness, how I yearn for you all with the affection of Christ Jesus, and it is my prayer that your love may abound more and more with knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve what is excellent, and so be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. And then in verses 15 through 18, Paul says there are some who are preaching the gospel out of envy and out of spite and out of rivalry for him. Paul's just happy that the gospel's being spread. What lessons do you all see here?
I want to look really at verse 1, how Paul and Timothy introduce themselves. They describe themselves as bondservants, as slaves. 30 different times throughout the epistles, that's how Paul refers to himself. And when we think about the idea of a slave or a bondservant, we often think about the work. But ultimately, it's about someone who belongs to someone else. And Paul identifies himself here as someone, a servant of Jesus Christ. But the fact is, as you read throughout Philippians, he doesn't only see himself as a servant of Jesus Christ. He's really a servant to them. And the fact is what Paul's laying out for us here is the mind of a disciple is the mind of a servant. Right from the very beginning of the letter, he sets the tone how we ought to think and view ourselves and how we ought to regard ourselves in light of Christ and in light of others. I think about Jesus' words in Mark chapter 9, anyone who wants to be first must consider himself last and become the servant of all. That is what Paul saw himself as, and that's what he's encouraging us to look at ourselves as well as the Philippians.
Yeah, and it's because of that mindset. I think he speaks in verses 12 through verse 14 of something that's very difficult for us. And the question is, how do we look at hardships within our life? And Paul in this chapter, in these verses here, looks at a hardship that I think all of us would be overwhelmed by. He's in prison. This is one of his prison epistles. And the prison, there's no exercise gym. There's no library. You sit in a dark room all day long. That would be overwhelming. But Paul says there are two advantages that he's seen to what he has gone through because of the servant attitude that he had. He said, first of all, what has happened to him has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that his imprisonment was for Christ. That was a win for Paul. Paul's sitting in this jail in prison, but he said, this was good. And the second thing, he said, most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Paul saw benefits and positives that came out of his negative. I think it's a wonderful thing for us to do, and it's a hard thing for us to do. Sometimes the difficulties we go through in life, they do have positives to them. And we need to spend time thinking about them. And maybe sometimes the positive is not something that immediately is positive to us, but it's something that's positive for other people. And there's great value in that. And we need to learn to appreciate what our hardships can do, not only for us in a positive way, but for other people as well.
Amen. Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope these applications help you in your walk with God. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we finish out the first chapter of Philippians. We hope you have a great day.